Hi, my name is Shari Nomondi, representing the Global Students Forum from Kenya. Even before COVID 19, student unions, organizations, and movements urgently needed an effective mechanism for collaboration and solidarity. The crisis meant that we couldn't wait any longer. The pandemic has, in a single moment, distilled the shortcomings of our leaders and laid bare the tragic consequences, the injustices of our societies, and especially where students are involved. The Global Students Forum is a worldwide umbrella federation of 202 national and regional unions of students from 122 countries and territories. In the Global Students Forum, we sincerely believe that the perspective of the democratically elected, independent, and representative voices of students should be reflected and represented. Through a series of regional consultation with the All African Students Union, the Commonwealth Students Association, the European Students Union, the Latin American and Caribbean Continental Students Organization, and the Organizing Bureau of European Students Union, we came up with policies expressing different students' needs. Student participation is key, especially when making decisions around what affects us. Some of the key issues for us would include meaningful involvement of democratically elected student union representatives in higher education governance and policy making must be regarded as a fundamental value and pivotal building block of institutional democracy and civic participation. More responsive models of higher education governance and targeted support systems that accommodate diverse student participation are needed to foster a quality culture of representation and meaningful engagement. Democratic leadership training and similar capacity building efforts aimed at supporting strategic governance should be prioritized in order to increase leadership capabilities in all sectors, especially within the academic community. A call to action would include having all education institutions put in place action plans or policies that allow compassionate flexibility on issues affecting students, especially in emergencies. Equal access to free flexibility on issues affecting students, especially in emergencies. Equal access to free mental and physical healthcare professionals is also essential, as well as extra social support systems to ensure all students, regardless of the situations, are involved. There is nothing that can happen for us without us. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Bianca. I'm from Brazil. I'm a member of OCLAI, which is our continental organization for students in Latin America and the Caribbean. And I would like to say that I'm delighted to make this participation on the Global People Summit to talk a little bit about student participation, democracy, and governance in higher educational institutions. And I'm based here on the Students' Declaration made by the Global Students Forum, or umbrella organization for the students' movement worldwide. So, to begin, in support of the right to educational outlined in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights and on the Sustainable Goal number 5, student participation in higher education should be recognized as an imperative for furthering social justice, democratization, and sustainable development, to generate change in public policy making, and to strengthen educational frameworks globally. Only when students, teachers, members of schools, departments, and faculties, and general staff recognize that sharing the governance of an education institution is a common responsibility, can the vital deliberations and collaborative dialogue take place, leading to long-term and strategic decisions upholding the best collective interests for all the parties involved. The meaningful involvement of democratically elected student unions representatives in higher education governance and policymaking must be regarded as a fundamental value and pivotal building block of institutional democracy and civic participation, as it is a fundamental factor for the education in which we believe we should be democratic and to all. However, This participation can only be regarded as meaningful if it creates a tangible impact on the outcomes of decision making processes in higher education institutions, governments, and the civil society. To accomplish it, maintaining students' union autonomy and political independence is essential in order to support students in successfully fulfilling their role as a civic voice in society. An inclusive approach to leadership is necessary in academic environments to allow a modern collegial institution to be intersectional and self-critical, ensuring diversity, addressing discrimination mechanisms, and identifying the barriers preventing equal participation of individuals from all backgrounds to combat gender stereotypes and glass ceilings.
Greetings everyone, my name is Ashley Punya from Zimbabwe, a member of the steering committee for Global Students Forum. The world is at crossroads. We meet at a time where there are critical and fundamental questions that are affecting us as humans, that are affecting us in the global context. To quote what Frantz Fanon said, he said each generation must, out of relative obscurity, discover its mission and choose whether to fulfill or betray it. Colleagues, what is forming our conscience of the moment is the question of climate change and environmental justice. This is a question that does not affect us only, but has affected the past, the present, and the future. Those from the past, whom they have held in suffocation in the future, have failed to quickly address the question of climate justice and climate change. So it is upon us to choose to fulfill this battle and make sure that we address it so that it doesn't affect the generations to come. Colleagues, we all know the crisis that this brings. We all know that the more we use our emissions, the more we use different gases, this is causing acidification of oceans, henceforth resulting in a loss of marine species. We are killing innocent species each and every day because of our selfish agendas and selfish reasons. And I must say that this has to come to an end. We are the generation that is going to bring this to an end. We all know that these are not only the species that are under attack, but even us as human beings. You all know that the rise in the sea levels is causing landslides, is causing families, communities to be destroyed by when the ice melts and oceans rises. It's very catastrophic, affecting our very own livelihood. So colleagues, we're not only doing it for other species, but we're doing it for ourselves and to preserve our communities. We all know that there are going to be droughts if we don't use and preserve our environment, if we don't use and preserve sustainably our natural resources. Droughts are going to come. We are going to be affected. This is also affecting the question of food security, which is equally important in terms of the current and the future. So we need to address this. And what must we do? We must make sure that we address this at government level. Governments must adopt policies that are pro-environment. Government must make sure we know that they have the capacity, they have the mandate, the responsibility, and the capacity to make sure that we have policies that are environmental friendly and introduce strict measures in terms of punishing perpetrators of such, because we all know that the perpetrators of these are not benefiting the people, but they are benefiting a few individuals that is affected. So the masses are suffering, the masses are bearing the cost for a few minority, instead of adopting policies that must ensure that people are guaranteed, the safety of people is assured. We must also tackle this from a government level, but also from an individual level. Let's make sure that we use gases, we use natural resources, we use energy systems that are not going to destroy our environment. Let's make sure that we do preserve our environment. Let's make sure that even at our tertiary institutions, there are systems, mechanisms that are meant to preserve our environment. Let's protect the ecosystem. If you protect the ecosystem, we are protecting each other. The more that the sea rises, we also need to rise in defense of the environment. We need to rise and defend the nature. We need to rise and defend the ecosystem so that the future is going to benefit from this. This is the only legacy that you can leave for the future generations, so that they can benefit, so that they can also feel the earth and enjoy the breath and enjoy the breeze that Mother Earth has and its beauty. Thank you very much. I hope everyone at individual capacity, regional capacity, government capacity is going to take this call serious. It's going to heed to this call to make sure that the climate change question is addressed and environmental justice is achieved. Thank you very much. Salute.
Greetings everyone. Today I am glad to have this opportunity to present the views of the Global Student Forum which formulated the Global Student Declaration. The topic I would like to address is the one with which all of us are very familiar and yet we forget to highlight its importance and the reform it requires. That is digitalization. All of us are connected here today with the help of digitalization, and this example is relevant enough to show how the digital world plays an important role in allowing the different corners of the globe to get into contact with each other. It is instrumental in tackling the impacts of internationalization and higher education. To integrate ICT into higher education, there is a need to develop affordable, easily accessible and good quality education system for the people living in remote areas. The internet and other components of the digital world have played an important role when it comes to the topic of higher education, keeping in view the recent events of COVID-19. While on one hand, digitalization allowed more than 1 million students to get access to higher education during the time of COVID-19, it won't be wrong when I say that there are about more than 1 million who still lack this access. There are problems of connectivity and availability of required devices among a wide mass of people. Asynchronous and blended learning techniques need to be adopted, which include both physical and online lectures, and this will enable students to learn according to their own will, ensuring that data is clearly transmitted and interactive sessions developed, encouraging students to take an active part in the learning process. Today, there is a great threat to data security as well, of the data being provided to various educational platforms, including the location. Student data needs to be protected at any cost and banned from being commercially used by HEIS and other educational authorities. Privacy invasive software for distance education also needs to be prohibited. Use of unlicensed software and other people's work are unethical issues of digital facilities. Plagiarism results in decline of educational standards. The threat of COVID-19 is also not over yet. Safeguards need to be taken to avoid any other major outbreak that might deteriorate the education system at global level. There is a need to disseminate information regarding the precautions through the digital means and the steps of community care for already affected students. Education should not be considered mere provision of textbook knowledge. It must be integrated with skill and personality development, and user-friendly interfaces must be developed for the same. The prevailing existing digital learning environments needs to be redesigned and reformed to cover more advanced technologies and for professional development of digital users. Digitalization proves to be problematic not only for students but for universities and other educational institutions as well. Universities are facing huge demand for IT staff, and it is challenging for institutions to maintain huge databases with security round the clock. The financial management also requires secure transfers and data storage with confidentiality. These problems need to be combated at earliest, and new technologies need to be invented. While the digital world has helped human population on a massive scale, due to huge engagement on computers, humans are forgetting the relations. They are forgetting their family responsibilities and are becoming opportunists. Looking into the future, if these problems are not resolved, then there will be less efficient human capital. Therefore, I urge all the people sitting here today to think and act quickly for betterment of the global society and resolve the problems of this new normal, the global digital world. Thank you so much.
Dear activists of the Global People Summit, the kids aren't all right, and that's why we have to talk about mental health. The picture often drawn is that if you break a leg in school, you will get treatment ASAP, what I would debate. However, if you're not feeling well without being visible on the outside, it is clear that one faces a lot of different issues and the risk of being left alone with it is very high. I think we all have seen the shocking statistics of the explosion of depression and anxiety of young people. And it's also no surprise that the pandemic has left its deep marks on my generation. And this calls for action. As the Global Students Forum, we have concrete demands. First, the impact of COVID-19 on higher education. States must take an unprecedented effort to finance educational recovery post-pandemic to prevent leaving a generation of students behind. Responsibility for providing free quality to education to children who lost their parents during this pandemic must be upheld by states and international organizations. Because also the fear of not making ends meet causes people to live in fear. We have to talk about justice. Second, more attention must be paid to the psychological well-being of students and educators in education. Regular dissemination of information on the importance of mental well-being and psychological health should be prioritized by different means like social media, one-on-one conversation, and school and university counseling programs. The quantity, the quality, and the accessibility of mental health counseling service needs to be strengthened, enabling more students facing difficulties to seek for professional help, combating the persisting stigma associated with mental health issues. Taking care of one's mental health shouldn't be a luxury. No, the access to it has to be granted to everyone. This means also not looking at some parts of the world. It means talking about health equity, mental health equity everywhere. However, mental health has been a construction site even before the pandemic. I ask myself, how can it be that an education system makes us sick? Why is an education system, or to phrase it better, a society based on pressure and performance and not on personal development and well-being? As often repeated, the problems have become more visible than ever through the crisis and the crisis that lay in front of us. So let's talk about it now. Let's talk about the stigma. Let's talk about the system that enriches gaps in mental health. Let's talk about curricula that tackle nowadays issues. We, the Global Students Forum, once again underlined the importance of health in all its aspects, from the release of vaccine patents to mental health staff in education institutions to affordable access or most likely free access to health measurements. The kids aren't all right. And frankly, we know it's not only the kids. This is a topic that is a cross-section of the whole society. And speaking as an activist, I see that a lot needs to be done in our fields too. So I end my intervention with the one sentence that I really want to emphasize. Mental health is health.
One of the key issues discussed as well, or a tenet or important principle that is discussed, was on student academic freedom and students having the ability to discuss unpopular views or opinions, have those uncomfortable discussions which may not be in favor of all, but having the freedom to have these discussions and these discourse is very important. Also for students to know that they are a part of a community of scholars and that they should be included in research to help advance conventional knowledge to newer knowledge. Also the freedom to be taught and to learn, freedom to also carry out research, and freedom from institutional or state censorship or interference, whether it's to do with issues on politics, social issues, or positions in any field that may concern students in that institution or other bodies, and that there should be no censorship or interference by other bodies to prevent students from having the ability to speak up and out. Students should not be disallowed, and this should happen without discrimination, fear, intimidation, or any form of prosecution. And I think that's very important. It was an eye-opener being a part of a big group of students from all across the globe, especially being from a Pacific Island nation, and one of the very few representatives from a Pacific Island nation where our primary focus in the Pacific Island nation, where we have counted or a few higher learning institutions where our primary focus is for access to education, because we're developing countries and our primary focus is on access to education. Comparing that with more developed countries who are focused on content and delivery, and I think that's a major difference. But it was a great learning experience to also understand that a lot of the issues that we face are faced by many institutions all across the globe.